Hi, I'm Rita Banerji. I'm founder of the 50 Million Missing campaign, which works on the genocide of Indian women. Today I'm going to talk to you about surrogacy in India. India is a hub of commercial surrogacy in the world. People, especially from the West, Europe and North America and Australia, find India to be a cheap destination to come and buy surrogate wombs. Now, majority, in fact, probably most of the women who have been used as surrogates so far they're women from poor families. And the second factor is that most of these women are married women. Now, surrogacy was commercialized in 2002. Thereafter, there were multiple reports of how there had been extreme and terrible abuse of women from poor families who were actually literally bred like livestock in these surrogate, what they call homes, but essentially they were like baby farms where these women were isolated and bred for to produce these babies. There was, despite the fact that there were guidelines set, there were multiple media reports, and there were guidelines set about how that clinics were supposed to follow. That actually never happened, and despite the fact that from 2002 onwards it has been commercial and legally commercial in India, and there have been multiple families coming and within India and from outside India who have used these women. There's hardly any record that the government has on details as to how many women actually were used for surrogacy, how many women were forced through multiple pregnancies. Most of these women were, since they were illiterate and uneducated, they had no idea of their own rights. So there were reports of how, without their knowledge, doctors would perform abortion if the fetus was not to the liking of the couple that was paying for these services. And in India especially, given that people want sons and not daughters, there were multiple incidents of abortions without the women's knowledge till such time they carried a male fetus. So there has been no record. There's no record of how many women may have fallen seriously sick or died due to these procedures. So after multiple such media reports, the government decided to ban commercial surrogacy. This year, 2019, a bill was passed essentially banning commercial surrogacy and saying that it could be done. It could be altruistic surrogacy, and certain guidelines have been set down. For instance, they have stipulated the age of the women. They have stipulated that it's only married couples who can have surrogates, and they have to establish that they are close relatives of the woman who is going to carry the fetus, and also that the couple themselves have not been able to have a viable child. So various such guidelines have been set down. The only thing is that while it was legal, we don't have any record of what conditions these women as surrogates endured, how many of these women fell sick, how many times a woman went through pregnancy, how much a woman was paid, etc. We don't have any such records. So with it being illegalized, one of my concerns particularly is that now media is not even going to, it's going to go completely underground, and that is one of my biggest concern. The services, probably the services will continue, but the media most likely will not be able to get information, or if they get information, they will not publish it. This year, for instance, I've hardly read anything on surrogacy in any of the media. So my concern is that the abuse of women is going to go underground, or else it would be quite easy to set up surrogate farms in neighboring countries just across the border. And in fact, I have heard that such setups are that they're already coming up, for example, in Bangladesh and Nepal, where poor women would be smuggled. So now it would not just be simply reproductive or sexual abuse of women, but it would be actually it would involve trafficking. You know, the fear is always that as women are taken across the borders, that there is no, in another country we do not know what law they come under or what protection they have, and the abuse could get worse, in that they could further be pushed into the sex trafficking trade. So my concern right now is that we need two things. One, we need a law which would probably equal the law for prostitution in Sweden, where it would be legal for women, but it would be illegal for the clinics, for the doctors, and for the people buying the services. Secondly, we would need, India would need extensive international agreements with, for example, the neighboring countries, but then other countries. For instance, right now when you click on the internet, if you do the Google in India, you still see surrogacy services, and they come up right on top of the search engine for surrogates, you know, and there are some services in New York. I don't even know how. So for instance, what I was just mentioning before, that if there is fear of smuggling women, trafficking women across the border, then how far can they go? Can they, could they be trafficked as far as North America for the purpose of surrogacy? So India would need some sort of an international agreement with as many countries as possible for the protection of women. Thirdly, the issue of surrogacy, even though there has been a lot of reports saying that poor families have benefited, the fact is that if actually poor women were to financially benefit from surrogacy, what we would see is women who are single, like widows, or women who have been abandoned, as often it happens among the rural and urban poor in India. Men just pick up and leave, and the women are left with multiple children to take care of. You would think that these are the women who would go into surrogacy and get the money if there was that much money involved. but we find that these women, it's never these women who give their services to surrogacy. It is always women who are married. So where there is a choice, where a woman has the control over her own body, she's not making the single women who are widowed, women who are abandoned, who need the money, who they don't make the choice, they don't opt for surrogacy. And we have to remember that this is a country where, for example, with sex-selective abortion, there is a cultural factor where when a woman is married, her body essentially belongs to her husband and the family, the in-laws that she's married into. In terms of sex-selected abortion, women very rarely, they do not have a say in whether or not they will keep their fetus or abort the fetus. And this is true not just for uneducated poor women, but even for educated women in India, where when the families and husbands don't want a daughter, they force the woman to get an abortion. So if the surrogacy market, the surrogacy industry, it crosses with India's cultural control of women's bodies in a very destructive and dangerous way. And it is extremely important that we take that into consideration, that if people in the West want to, what they really want children, there are lots of children who are looking for homes for adoption. In India, we have millions of children in homes who are looking for adoption. Why not adopt, Because when you create a market for surrogacy, you also create the platform for the sexual, reproductive, and physical abuse of women in India. So thank you. I hope that people will adopt. I hope that people will not support the surrogacy industry in India. Thank you.